Mental health, the conversation no one wants to talk about. But why is this so difficult? Today's guest is here just to explore that. Welcome to the Cleveland Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Hubbard Jr., and we're joined today by a very special guest, licensed counselor Eric King. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So today's conversation is going to be about mental health, the conversation that no man really wants to talk about, but we're going to dive into it today. So let's start by just talking about who you are, where you're from, and how you got into this space.
Wow. Let's see. I am a husband. I am a father. And I got into this space, oddly enough, after the University of Akron asked me not to return. So at one point I was a computer programmer, and I pledged Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. And I did what we do. We have fun. And the University of Akron said, you've had too much fun and you got to go. And so during that time, I went through a bout of depression. I didn't know what it was. I went through a bout of depression, men, black males, specifically. Don't nobody know what that is. But while I was at University of Akron, I, impregnated my girlfriend at the time. And so I had to figure out what to do. And so I had two choices. Either I'm going to be a teacher or I'm going to be a behavioral specialist. And I picked behavioral specialist, and I never looked back. I was able to get into, I attended Tri-C to get my grades right, transferred to Cleveland State. And I did so well at Cleveland State, I got my graduate program paid for. And oddly enough, I went back after 6 or 7 years of being, once I got married and got my second graduate degree. And now, I'm what you call Dr. Adjacent. But I get to do the thing that I love, which is counseling. And I specialize in men.
All right. So, you had a story.
Right.
Like many of us had a story. And if I was to talk about mine, it's very, very relatable because so many of us have that experience. And I probably could even have a segment on, what happens to young black men. We go to college.
Yes.
We don't always go straight through, because I didn't either. Yeah. And then I ultimately ended up graduating from Cleveland State. Thank God. Yeah. But it just happens that way. Yep. And you mentioned something earlier that a lot of people really don't realize is you went through a bout of depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you recognize? How did you get through it?
Oh, I didn't recognize until I got the education. But I got through it like most men get through it. I suppressed, I rationalized, I ignored, I worked out. And at the time when I came home, I lived in my godmother's basement while I attended Tri-C and whatnot. So I really just, for the most part, put my head down and decided to move forward and became action-oriented. Unbeknownst to me, I was actually snappy. Right? I was not eating well. I was allowing my body to break down. My spirit, or my, my view of who I am began to, have some holes in it. And I was I wasn't a great person. I was, relationships that I had and even close family members, I was snapping on them. And I just thought it was me, being headstrong and needing to get somewhere and this and that. And so I got through it by just soldiering through it. But at the time in soldiering through it, I began to break down mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That later on, once I got the education, was like, oh, that's what you was going through. And so that's how I did it. Just like, most men, just put our head down, get through it. And, it wasn't great. It just wasn't great at all.
Ironically, when I have conversations about mental health, my journey has been a journey as well. Yeah. And I too, like most men, was like reluctant to go and have a conversation. But when you talk to most men, like you hear the two statements. Yeah. Either God is my therapist, right, or I don't need it. Right.
Yeah. I am a Christian. And I am a Christian, and I understood. And so later on, once I did get into, back into Tri-C, I had this teacher And I'm not sure if you know, I'm not sure your experience, but I had to repair my grades. And I looked at everything and was like, all right, I'm gonna take this class. And the class was on religion. The teacher walked in and said, hey, if you know my religion at the end of this class, I didn't do my job. And so we touched on all of the religions. Now, mind you, I've been in the church just like every other black male. I've been in the church since 0, right? And so later on, as I grew up and taking that course, I found the places where depression, anxiety, disconnect, and all of that is located in the Bible. Whether we're talking about David, or whether we're talking in New Testament where, Jesus is like, take this cup, bro, I don't want this, right? That's, it's in the Bible. So anytime I hear somebody who is a Christian or religious say, God is my therapist, yeah, and he's your dentist, and he's your lawyer, and he's all of these things. So utilize these people, and by utilizing these people, you have the opportunity to grow past where you are in this present moment.
No, I can appreciate that. Yeah. I always thought, and it was funny because I've had that conversation with my dad and various other people. Like, I just talked to God, and I understand, right? And there's nothing wrong with talking to God, right. But like, God is our everything, right? But God is the reason you have hair. But he's telling you to comb it. He ain't combing it right.
I'm sorry. Let me be serious.
He gives us the things we can manage.
Exactly.
And so many of us we still don't want to talk about it. And I've had so many friends who I've talked to about even since going on my own journey, saying, "Hey, you know what? I recognize something in me, so maybe you should recognize something in you. You need to talk to somebody." And a lot of them are just like, what is that going to do for me?
Yeah, therapy is scary. I mean, when I start this journey with every, individual, I don't lie to him, man. I tell him straight up, like, yo, think about it like this. You start at one end of the tunnel, you got light behind you, and you going, right? And you get in the middle of this therapy thing, and you don't see a light at that end in front of you, and that light behind you is gone. You see that pothole or that manhole above, you're going to try to get out. This is the problem. Once you get out, wherever you stop therapy, you can't unlearn what you learned about yourself. And a good therapist centers their sessions around their client. It has nothing to do about them. It centers around them. And so a good therapist is there to tell you, this is scary. While telling you it's scary, you can get through it. While getting through it, you're going to find things about yourself that is hurtful. The moment you decide to quit is the moment you take yourself back to where you were with the same knowledge of, wow, this came from my socialization as a male, or this came from my socialization as this. So it's not simply a part of me, this is of me, and I got to deal with it. It's
a hard thing to deal with.
You got to deal with it, yeah.
So a burning question, do therapists get therapy before becoming therapists?
Yeah, big shout out to Tiffany Hurd. She's my therapist. I see her bi-weekly and sometimes once a month. So yeah, we're human too. And the most interesting thing about being a therapist, going to see a therapist is I have to surrender and submit, just like I ask my clients to surrender and submit. And yeah, I got all this knowledge and I got all this. I can tell you, how the brain works, because that's my first graduate degree was in. I minored, but I took a lot more classes in neurodevelopment. So I can tell you how the brain works. I can give you all this information, but I need to submit and surrender and go deal with the things that make me human as well. So yeah, I have a therapist, and any therapist friend that I have, I truly recommend that they go see a therapist, because we're taking on a lot along with the rest of the things that we got going on in our life.
I guess I didn't think about it from the aspect of you carry our stuff too.
Yeah.
We talk to you and then you got to carry this whole bag of stuff with you. Like, what's going on with this person? I'm really concerned about this person.
Right.
How do you turn that off?
Yeah. Well, man, I've been in mental health for 20 years, right? So I graduated with my first my BA in 2023, and so I guess over 20 years. But at any case,
2002 or 2003.
2023. I mean 2003. I'm sorry.
I'm like, that's 3 years ago.
My fault. But no, it's trial and error, man. You have to figure out your greatest way or your best way of decompressing, just like anybody else. You can't take this stuff home, man, or else you be drinking. You be just as bad as the people that you see. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but when you choose to work with people, there's a way that you have to decompress. And so over the years, what I've learned is there's this thing called professional boundaries and personal boundaries, and they don't bleed over. And I also have a understanding of what does burnout look like. And so for me, when I leave the office and I lock the door, I leave everything that I've dealt with the, whomever I've worked with that day, once I close the door and lock that door. And I drive home, and that distance between driving home and when I get to the garage, I prepare myself to be a husband and a father, or wherever else I'm going.
Okay, no, I think that's a great explanation. Yeah. Another thing I'm thinking about is therapist is not like a one size fits all.
No.
So, even before we even get to the conversation, while men don't even want to get into therapy, how do they even go about finding what's the right person for you?
Yeah. I think, so Charlemagne I think his second book Charlemagne and God his second book deals really well with therapy and his trek with therapy. And what he said was, for him specifically, I wanted to find someone who did not have a shared experience. And so what he also talks about is when you go to have therapy or when you want to figure out a therapist, figure out the person you want to work with. Now, there are some individuals that, if you feel a very strong pull to, deal with someone that looks like you, then find that person. Find that person, deal with that person, and relate to that person. It's really about what you as an individual want to deal with and feel okay about emptying, putting in front. Psychology Today does a really good job of curating therapists and also finding the type that you want. And what I recommend, go to that first therapy appointment, and if it don't feel right physically, mentally, or spiritually, just leave. Not leave in the middle of it, but just, try somebody else. You got to find, it's like a good pair of pants, man. You got to find out the ones that fit for you.
When you find that favorite pair,
man, you got to let it roll till the butt come out and everything. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what happened. Right. That's what happened. So the hard conversation is why do most men fight therapy? I know my own personal experience growing up, I didn't know about therapies. I knew about what a therapist was when I was a kid. I never thought about it. I lost my grandparents at an early age. Both of my parents lost their parents, their dads at a very young age. They were like in single digits. Mm-hmm. And then their mothers, they lost when I was younger. Yeah. And so I know both of my parents may have experienced a lot of trauma in their lifetime, but therapy was like never a conversation. It was, we go to church and if you got a problem, and my mom was always like that, you pray and whatever your issue is, God is going to help you get through it.
Right.
But that's your strength, and that's what it was. And that's it. Even as I got older, you start talking to people and you say, are you going to talk to somebody? Well, no, you crazy if you got to go talk to a therapist. Right. Something's wrong with you if you need to go talk to a therapist.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I can say most is our socialization. If we're talking about men, is literally our socialization, right? What we're taught and how we're taught to deal with emotions, struggles, and also our day-to-day life is the number one issue, right? So I'm a Gen Xer. And I was, taught not to cry, taught not to do this. I tell a story about how my uncle, great meaning uncle, but because I was both light-skinned, as you can see from the camera, and I'm also light in the behind, he somehow in his head was like, my nephew needs to be tough. And what he would do was, when He would bring me out in the front of the yard and he would force me to fight the other males in the neighborhood. Now, he was right in some aspects. I needed to learn how to fight. I was a, single parent, only child, lived in the suburbs, vacationed in Cleveland on the weekends. So
vacation in Cleveland is funny.
Right. Vacation in Cleveland. So, but he was right. I had to learn how to fight. There's certain aspects during that time that I had to deal with, right? That I needed to protect myself. I mean, I learned how to fight. I went to college and I fought a lot. And I grew up and fought a lot. And it's like, what happened? But I didn't learn later on that I had an issue with men. I had an issue with, connecting with men because of this, because I was taught that men are violent and that this is a violent world. So to answer your question more succinctly, and I know I got off on a tangent, but it's more about our socialization. And as we continue to socialize our young men in a way that you need to be this way, you need to button up, you need to not cry, you need to protect yourself, you need to, be this way. The more that we socialize our young men in that way, or even socialize people in that way, the more we're going to get this response to therapy, to processing your emotions, to understanding who you are, not just from this level, but as a whole body level.
At what point should a person seek out therapy?
When your bad decisions start showing up in your life. So when you can't balance your checkbook, when you constipated and can't eat well, when you can't sleep, when your bad decisions, when your decisions start causing you harm in your life, go see somebody. And, mental health is literally, only thing that I'm doing is helping individuals understand how their choices relate to their life.
Gotcha.
That's all I'm doing. So you should go to therapy when things start breaking down, and you sit there and everything that you've done, all them prayers that you done prayed and all that, lying, cheating and whatever is not helping. Go see somebody. That's when your health break down, when your spirit break down, when your home break down, you need to go see somebody.
What about as it pertains to youth?
Youth? So youth is weird. This is why, because they don't grow up in a vacuum. And a lot of times, early in my career, I was a black male whisperer, right? So everybody brought me their sons, black sons to fix. What I found later on is they're fine. It's their environment that needs to be. So when you're working with kids, when you notice that your child, behavior changes outside of typical development, that's when you might need to, check out. Parents need to look at their kids' phones. They need to pay attention to how long they sleep. They need to do all of this, right? They need to figure out, and pay attention to the amount that they're eating or sleeping. Take, certain things out of their rooms. So when you're working with kids, you need to talk to the teachers. You need to pay attention to the friends. You need to pay attention to the coach. And you need to also recognize that the environment that you're raising these kids in dictates way more, than the external environment.
Understanding, to get to a place where we are comfortable with seeking help. Yeah. I look at it as a step-by-step process. Mm-hmm. How do we debunk the myths about mental health?
Yeah, man. I would say, back in the day, I would say we debunk it by, more information, more of this, more of that, but we have that. And we still have the same stigma. Yeah. From a professional level, if there's any counselors watching, elevate your profession because it is a medical profession. Have strict boundaries. Present yourself in a way that a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist would present himself in a way. So that's one from a professional side. From a non-professional side, debunking that myth is just going to, I guess, I don't know, man. It's a hard one because the very first thing that pops into my head is talk more, right? Talk more. have more conversations, listen more, talk less, from an outside public. So I'm really not sure how to debunk, the myth because it's been here so long. But I think it starts from a professional side, right? If we as professionals continue to view ourselves as optional, then that means that the public is going to view us as optional. And I can't necessarily say that there's one, panacea or one thing to cure this, but it definitely, from a professional side, we need to start viewing ourselves as essential. And if we start viewing ourselves as essential and treating ourselves as essential, then that means people will start looking at us, in more of an essential manner. But as far as the myth, we can't control that. That's out of our hands. But we as professionals, the way that we, carry ourselves in session as professionals dictate how others, view us. So my other question would be, so how does one know what type of therapist to seek out? I know that there are many different types of therapists, so if I had a drug problem, maybe I would talk to somebody else. Yeah. But if I was just dealing with depression or if I was dealing with grief, are those different people? So not necessarily. Just like you go to a PCP and it's a general PCP, and that general PCP handles, general things. And that general PCP may say, okay, you need to go see an orthopedic or an oncologist. It's really about the specific concept of what you have to do. So what I always say is start general. Right? You go in, you ask that person, do you have a history of working with this? And what's your modality in working? EMDR, eye desensitization. I know I said some acronyms and people want to know, but there are certain techniques that we use that are different than, cognitive behavioral therapy or just simple talk therapy. What I say is start general, and from that general, find out specifically what you're dealing with. If you already know it's grief, look for a grief counselor. Specifically pull up Psychology Today, choose all of the things that you want to choose, and select grief. And talk to that person about grief. But what you'll find is grief falls into depression, falls into anxiety, falls into loss, falls into PTSD. But as a generalist or, as a person searching, be more specific on what you're looking for and find that person that you're looking for. And then if that doesn't work, find somebody else. Hopefully that answers. No, I think it does. It gives me another question. Yeah. What type of expectations should a person have with going to a counselor? So I think a lot of people, I don't want to give the misnomer that you're going to go to a counselor and they're going to fix you. Right. Yeah, there's no fixing you. Now, one counselor can fix you. If a counselor say they're going to fix you, that's different. A counselor's job is to be the guide of where you want to be. So if we're in this bus together, you're driving, I'm the guide. It's my job to take you where you want to go. Now, if you choose not to follow my instructions, that's on you, and I can't take responsibility for that. So the expectations, are for a counselor to simply be your guide. They can't fix you. They can help you become more enlightened, but they can't fix you. And they can show you more things that is, you're having a struggle with. They're not your friend. They may be friendly, but they're not your friend. That's what to expect. Okay, no, I think you answered that a lot. Yeah. So a couple of them more, and then I wanna get into some fun questions. Yeah, I like. So one of the fun questions I always like to ask counselors or anybody who's on the show. Yeah. Is how do you decompress? Yeah, man. I like. So I go to a gun range. Right. So right where my office is in Independence, down the hill, there's a gun range. I go down there and shoot. I like golf. And I laugh a lot, bro. At home, my wife is a little bit more stoic than I am at times, but I'm a fool, man. I'm silly. I like to laugh. I watch TV. I do all the things that, just normal people, typical people do, and that I express to decompress. I also meditate. I journal. I listen to books. I listen to books that ain't got nothing to do with mental health, right? I listen to books that just is crazy. So those are all the things, but, shooting range, golfing, laughing, walking, working out, journaling, and just being an all-around fool.
Now, that's because you're in mental health, does your friends and family automatically just revert to you like, Eric, you know what? I got some on my mind. I need to talk to you.
Bruh, they don't even like me, man. They don't even talk to me. The moment that I become a mental health professional, man, I'm the worst person to talk to in their head. And I tell them, you're not paying me, so I don't care what you're going through. And if you're gonna ask me a question, I'm gonna ask you, do you want Eric or do you want the licensed professional? And if they say, oh, well, give me the therapist, I get them therapists, and then I say, you ain't paying me, so let me get over here with my Eric. But no, some of them do, right? But a lot of times, because I am black, right? I'm not like a lawyer. I'm not like, I can't get them out of a fix instantly. So a lot of times when they do ask me questions, I do give them that while understanding they're looking for advice. And I only give advice as Eric King. I don't give, any therapist that gives advice, as a licensed professional may not be the best therapist. So I don't give advice as therapy. I give advice as Eric. Be like, yo, you messed up. You might need to go A, B, and C and elemental P somebody. But yeah, that's how I do. Yeah, they don't like me.
So, in having a conversation and experiencing it, mental health is incredibly important. And,
yes.
And talking to a therapist is incredibly important. But why don't we provide a lot of these services? I know kids have them at school.
Yeah.
But it's not widely available at school.
Nah.
We have so many black people that are incarcerated. It's not widely available to people who are incarcerated. When we go to church and you get counsel and you learn about it, you never hear the pastor say you need to go talk to somebody.
Right.
So it's necessary.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like this mystical thing.
It's weird. It's weird. I put us in the category of police officer and teachers. Right. We're needed. But don't nobody want to pay us. Don't nobody want to elevate us, man. And then, I have a saying, one counselor has the ability, one counselor working with one client has the ability to affect 1 million people. One bad counselor still affects that 1 million people, but you're going to hear about how bad that counselor is, right? So that's one. And then, but you're very rarely going to hear about how, good a counselor is. That happens that same way with teachers, right? Same way with teachers. You hear about all these bad teachers and how, bad police officers. So a lot of time, if I have to, be specific on why it is like that, is they put us in, I believe we're in the same category as police officers and teachers or any other helping profession that are judged by the bad of what they do rather than the good of what we do.
Okay. So I'm going to get into my last two questions. I want to know if you had a vision of mental health for the community, what would it look like?
Bruh, if I had a vision of mental, I take it back to the old days, man. Meaning I had that, we need to put more respect in the story of our elders, man. That council of folks that you just go to and just, you enter into that hut or you enter into that room or enter into that community, and that community knows when you enter into there, you're going in for enlightenment, man. You're going in for growth. And we no longer have that as a community, right? We no longer have a specific understanding of people that are strictly there for enlightenment, and their credentials are they've been through some stuff. And they're not going to give you what you should do. They're going to give you and pour into you what they've experienced and ask you to take their experience and put it in a blender and drink it for you and for your experience. That's what we need, man. And we need, earlier your producer was talking about the shed, We need a shed, man, but we need a shed of everyone respected, and just you can come to that shed and be naked and be vulnerable and be there. And you leave that shed, feeling lighter. That's what we need, man.
That sounds like an awesome video.
It would be. You know someplace we can do that?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like an amazing place.
Yeah.
And I remember those old days of having that council and that group of people I could talk to where everybody knew you.
Everybody knew, and it's not everybody know you to break you down and judge you. Everybody know you like, yo, he going through some things. Come on into this shed. And you got people who are strictly set aside to deal with that shed, right? They're not there, or they're there to deal with your struggles. They're there to support you. They're not there to sell you something, right? A coaching class or whatever. They're there to support you, right? They're there specifically, holistically for you. And when you leave, what you said in there is all about you and never comes out. That's what we need.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does.
So my last couple of questions, I want to know, where does one toe the line between religion and therapy?
Ooh, you can't. So, man. All right. So there's a difference in my book between religion and spirituality, right? Everyone has the spirit, right? So when I approach therapy, it's mind, body, and spirit. It's a three-legged stool. If one goes downhill, they all going downhill. When I look at it from a religion, whatever discipline you choose to practice, from Eastern religion to, the Abrahamic religions, there's an aspect of that in there. And you have to figure out how the discipline, the tenements, and the things that you do fits your life. But a lot of times, the spirit is the self, is the thing that you have to figure out. How does my spirit relate to my religion, which relate to my body, which relates to my mind? So you're really towing the line on how much self-discipline you want to have in your day-to-day life. But whether or not you have a religion or you don't, you have a spirit. And that spirit is perfect. And all you're basically doing from the moment you exist and you're born, you're attempting to work your way mentally to your spirit level, because it's perfect, and physically to your spirit level, so that you can be a whole person.
I mean, I like that. That's a good explanation.
Okay.
All right, so
I'm a coin that.
You should coin that, because that's the first time I heard it.
Right.
One of my last and fun questions is, what's on your playlist right now?
Right now? Oh, are we talking music?
Music.
Books?
Well, it can be music or books, but when you driving around the town,
so
what are you listening to?
Let me be real with you. The new T.I. Right? Because I'm a Gen X, right? When I heard that T.I., I was like, oh yeah, here we go. But seriously, what's on my playlist? Like, I listen to a lot of frequency music, right? I don't know how much you understand how frequency and hertz work. When you go to sleep, there's certain frequencies like, gamma rays. All right, let me go back. I'm about to get into my nerdness, right? All right. So if you think about it, the way that we work on frequencies. And those frequencies at times get a bit off. Right. And so there are times, you may listen to a 50 hertz frequency or a 40 hertz frequency or a 240 or a 480. Now, for all those listening, y'all can go look and see what that is. But those frequencies readjust your brain, right? Your alpha waves, your gamma rays, they readjust your brain. So a lot of times with me, I'm sitting, because I do deal with so much in my life, I'm sitting and I will turn on a hertz or some type of frequency, and I'll just chill to that, right? If I really want to get productive at work, I turn on some gamma frequencies and I just have them playing, and it helps, center my brain and center, myself. But if I'm driving in the car, sometimes I drive without music. If I'm at home and I really, want to feel upbeat, I turn on some T.I. I'll turn on some, 80s and 90s, or even some, this new stuff I can't get into, but some old school Gen X rap, right? Because I love to dance. I'm in a fraternity, and I think the only reason why I joined that fraternity is to step. That's it, is to step. And so I turn on some things that, I used to step to. and get that energy moving, because I also understand how if I'm feeling down and depressed, movement is the greatest way to get out of depression. So it all depends on what I'm feeling in that moment. But that TI, get me. I got, it's all good.
All right. No, I love
that.
That new TI is really good. I have been listening to it. Right. I listen to all the diss tracks. Right. I can go into it.
Right.
All right. So my final question is for what you have is there any advice you want to give to our listeners out there?
And I'm giving it as Eric.
As Eric.
And I'm gonna give you some from so as Eric, what I've learned in being me is there's only one me, right? I am unique, but I'm normal and I'm not special. And the moment I began to believe or think that we begin to believe that we're special is the moment that we can be taken advantage of and be used for somebody else's growth. So as Eric, what I would say is just recognize that, is understand that you are the most unique and you're the only person out there, and be you. And that, and all the things and all the messes that it has to be you. As a therapist, what I would recommend is realize that there is no such thing as good or bad emotions. There's just comfortable and uncomfortable emotions. And there's no way to control your emotions, but there is a way to manage the way that you express your emotions and behave when you're triggered. Manage the Manage your behavior while understanding your emotions are natural, and embrace every last emotion that you have, and allow yourself to be a full human. That's what my advice is, Eric. Be you, and as a therapist, embrace every aspect of your humanness in the best way it could be.
I appreciate that. So for those out there, those gentlemen looking for a therapist and wanting to get in contact with you,
right? How
can they find you?
Bruh, you can go to MEWCOHIO.com. You can find me on Psychology Today. Just one word, psychologytoday.org. You can call me at 216-282-3733. You can find me on Talk to E King. On IG, let's see. On Facebook, you can go to MUCO, or Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio, on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think that's it. I think I got all the places.
All right. So if you are looking for a therapist, we have one here for you. I mean, you've heard today's conversation on why it's important. It's up to you to go and seek your own help. For those who are just tuning in today, thank you for listening to another episode of the Cleveland Pulse Podcast. And if I don't see you before the next time we record, do the best you can to take care of yourself. Peace.